Synopsis: Tieu Bach Hanh has cheated. We loved each other for 7 years and have been married for 4 years. In the end, he couldn't resist the freshness and the admiring gaze of a young girl. Upon hearing about his betrayal, I sat by the window all night, watching the darkness gradually fade until the dawn quietly flooded the room. In that moment, I made a decision. She shattered my marriage, so I will ruin her future. You betrayed my feelings, so I will cut off your wealth and happiness. None of them can live in peace. When Tieu Bach Hanh came down the stairs, I had just used my secondary account to check Lam Uyen's latest status on the friend circle. The young girl wore a white shirt, a short denim skirt, and had a vibrant youthful face. The status only had 2 very short words: dating. I looked up at the man in front of me. He was also wearing a white shirt and casual pants. Even though he was over 30, his figure was still neat and bright like a young man. It was clear that they had planned to dress alike. Tieu Bach Hanh approached, gently ruffled my hair, his voice as gentle as usual. He went out for a while, and I couldn't deny that Tieu Bach Hanh had a very handsome face. Years ago, I was infatuated with him, largely because of that appearance, especially when he smiled, both gentle and disarming. It's just a pity that at this moment, that smile only made me feel ironic. I also smiled as I watched him leave the house. Thinking it over, perhaps this is the last time we can treat each other so gently. After today, he will surely become irritable and grumpy. Perhaps there will be a big storm tonight. I have been preparing this plan for half a year. No one can live in peace. I chuckled softly, but a tear quietly fell from the corner of my eye. After all, that was a relationship of 11 years. I have given everything. Just like half a year ago, he still betrayed me. The day I discovered Tieu Bach Hanh's infidelity was actually just a very ordinary day. We had dinner together as usual. Usually at this time, we would tell each other about what happened during the day. Both of us were busy with work, so those brief moments together became even more precious. It was just that he seemed distracted that day, occasionally bending down to reply to messages on his phone, his lips unconsciously curling into a smile that he didn't even realize. When he replied to the message for the 3rd time, I frowned slightly, put down my chopsticks, and looked at him. What was he looking at that required such urgent replies? He seemed to notice that I was unhappy and immediately set his phone aside, smiling to reassure me. The people in the project team were still working overtime, and there were some urgent matters to handle. "Come on, let's enjoy dinner, don't be mad at me," he said. Then he picked up the part of the fisheye that I liked the most. "This is my favorite part." I looked at him, and a vague sense of alertness suddenly rose in my heart. After all, I know this person too well. That night, we still ate, talked, and went to bed as usual. It's just that he didn't know I wasn't asleep yet. The quiet night was so still that it made one feel uneasy. I quietly took his phone. We always trust each other. I have known his password for a long time, but I have never checked his phone. However, tonight I did something I had previously looked down upon. I sat on the sofa in the study, quietly scrolling through his phone. In the conversations, there was no one unfamiliar, but in the project group he just mentioned around dinner time, there were absolutely no messages. I continued to scroll through the contacts. My name was still pinned at the top. But as I scrolled past, I noticed someone with a mini profile picture. I clicked on it, but there was no conversation content, not even a greeting message when we first became friends. I opened her profile page. As I scrolled through, I silently prayed that there was nothing between them that crossed the line. The personal page of that girl was very rich, recording a colorful life, with quite a few selfies. She looked very confident and lively. When she smiled, her face radiated like it carried sunlight. Even I found her very beautiful. In a post from 2 months ago, I saw the familiar profile of Tieu Bach Hanh, with distinct facial features that were unmistakable. The status said she interviewed her idol today, so happy, truly worthy of being the outstanding senior I have always admired. The background was Tieu Bach Hanh's office. Perhaps this alone couldn't prove anything. My hand holding the phone trembled slightly, but in my heart, I still tried to hold on to a glimmer of hope. I continued to scroll down and saw a group photo of them. It was a collective photo with many people standing together. The two of them stood quite far apart, and the background seemed to be from a university anniversary. I clearly remembered him saying that his old school invited him back to give a speech for the anniversary, while I had to go on a business trip and couldn't attend. That day, I was so excited that I called him. The two talked for a long time about the years Tang studied in that school. From that group photo, memories gradually became clear in my mind. The scattered pieces from before suddenly connected. The day the girl posted a photo at a famous restaurant. Tieu Bach Hanh told me he was working overtime with the project team. The day she posted a photo at another restaurant. He said he had a meeting with a client. The day she posted a photo with a dolphin, he also said he had to stay at the company to work overtime. Even the famous bread he brought back for me was something he hoped I would praise. It turned out that was after he had gone out with that girl. In those photos, there was no trace of Tieu Bach Hanh, no evidence that he had ever been there. But I knew very well that this was not a reason for me to continue deceiving myself. I quietly took all those photos and information, then placed his phone back in its original spot, as if no one had ever touched it. Sitting by the window, I realized my hands and feet had been cold for some time. I hugged myself tightly, curled up in a corner by the window. Tears I didn't know had fallen silently soaked my cheeks. My mind was in chaos, almost unable to think clearly, only the cold feeling gradually spreading throughout my body remained. Tieu Bach Hanh and I have loved each other for 11 years, dated for 7 years, and been married for 4 years. I once believed that we would walk to the end of the road together. We once promised each other that we would never lose our way. But perhaps I trusted too soon. At this moment, what bothers me the most is that I understand him too well. I first met him in my freshman year of college, in the cafeteria of University A. That day I went for lunch, and as soon as I walked in, I saw a very striking guy standing at the serving counter dishing out food for classmates. He was wearing a mask, but his aura and facial features could not be hidden. His delicate eyebrows slightly furrowed, his gaze intently focused on the food in his hand as if he was doing something very serious. I curiously walked closer, hearing the staff nearby patiently guiding him. "You have to shake your hand gently, don't scoop too much meat like that. That's enough, don't put in so much." The guy in front, while receiving his tray, glanced at Tieu Bach Hanh and said with a smile, "Thanks, handsome." That comment made Tieu Bach Hanh even more flustered. I stood beside him, finding it amusing, and then stepped up to that counter. Watching him trying to shake the scoop correctly but being clumsy. And hearing the staff behind him sigh softly, I almost burst out laughing. That afternoon, we coincidentally met again in the library. Two people coming from different directions almost simultaneously reached for the same book. When our fingertips touched the cover of the book, both of us froze and looked up at each other. At that moment, he wasn't wearing a mask anymore. His facial features were much sharper and clearer. In my mind at that time, there was only one very simple thought: he is really handsome. That moment seemed to slow down time. Just when I was still in a daze, he pulled his hand back but handed me the book, casually taking another one and turning to leave. Without saying a word, that made me a little unhappy. After all, I am quite a beautiful girl and I get a lot of attention. So I decided to go to the counter where he worked that evening, to see him flustered once again to relieve my mood. But less than 2 hours later, we met again. In the debate club meeting, both he and I were first-year students who had just joined. When attendance was called, I learned that his name was Tieu Bach Hanh. After the meeting ended, I saw him hurriedly leaving. A thought crossed my mind, and I immediately chased after him. "Tieu Bach Hanh." He turned to look at me. The light behind him made his silhouette appear to be covered in a faint glow. That moment accidentally struck my heart. "Is something wrong?" His voice was deep, carrying a hint of warmth. I stepped closer, looked at him with a smile, my eyes full of playful intent. "Tieu Bach Hanh, we've met 3 times today.
This story is brought to you by Brainy Vibe.
Have you ever heard this saying? Meeting once is fate, meeting 3 times is destiny. After hearing this, he smiled slightly, his gaze still gentle, but his words were not easy to hear at all. I've never heard of it before. But Lieutenant, you're going to be late for work. He hurriedly left again. All right then. Flirting with a fool really has no effect. But that night, I still went to his stall to eat rice. He was no longer awkward like at noon, smiling as he scooped rice for me, and even secretly added more chicken thigh. We quietly inched closer to each other, getting to know each other better. The moment we defined our relationship was just an ordinary day. After the club meeting, we organized the documents together, then he took me back to the dorm. Under the dormitory, he took a gift out of his backpack, which was a star-shaped bracelet. In his eyes, there was no longer a smile, instead, there was tension. Lieutenant, can you be my girlfriend? I had never seen him so tense. His voice trembled, and after speaking, he bit his lip tightly. I smiled and nodded vigorously, very vigorously. Then I took the bracelet for him to put on me. He took a long time to put it on, his hands trembling non-stop. That night, we hugged for a long time. When I got back to the dorm, I was so happy that I rolled around on the bed. After 3 months of pursuing, I finally succeeded. We always supported each other, promised to trust each other, overcoming the years of college, overcoming the challenges of parting after graduation, conquering the difficulties of starting a business, promising a lifetime in marriage and becoming a couple that everyone admires. Over the years, we witnessed each other's growth, both becoming outstanding individuals in our respective fields. And he, after all the years I took care of him, has become a gentle, mature man with a good physique, but now he is about to become someone else's sweet fruit. That night, I looked again at the selfies of that girl, and I had to admit she was very beautiful. Being featured in the anniversary of University A and interviewing outstanding alumni also proves that she is a capable person. I self-hypnotized, thinking that perhaps things weren't as bad as I thought. We promised to be together for life, promised to trust each other. Unfortunately, the self-hypnosis failed. I was originally someone with clear goals and very good at being decisive. Unconsciously, the sun gradually rose, and my body also warmed up. Not wanting to let Tieu Bach Hanh see my miserable state, I tidied up and left the house early. When Tieu Bach Hanh called, I had already arrived at the office. His voice sounded gentle, just waking up. Wife, where have you gone? I had work today, so I came to the company early. I was in a hurry and didn't wake you up. I pretended to respond calmly, not letting him sense anything unusual. Remember to have breakfast. Do you love me? I love you. We were used to saying I love you over the phone. The detective is very responsible, and the file about the girl is very detailed. Lam Uyen, from the neighboring city, has parents who are both teachers at a key high school. She has been an excellent student since childhood and is currently a third-year computer science student at University A, and is a junior to Tieu Bach Hanh. My intuition was right. The file also contains photos of Tieu Bach Hanh and the girl together at a famous restaurant, a park, and a cafe under Tieu Bach Hanh's company building. Although there were no intimate actions, their harmony in the photo struck me as strange. I suddenly wanted to meet that girl. Just a few days ago, I received an invitation from my supervising professor to return to school to share and participate in an interview. On the sharing day, the professor and the head of the department joined me. I shared some practical examples with the students and received positive feedback. After that, the professor specially arranged an interview for the school newspaper. I casually mentioned that I heard Tieu Bach Hanh say, the last person who interviewed him was a very good reporter, so the professor arranged for Lam Uyen to interview me. Throughout the sharing session, she stood behind watching. When I heard the teacher mention the sweet moments between me and Tieu Bach Hanh, her expression clearly showed discomfort. I smiled and greeted her, even intentionally adding, I read your last interview with my husband, it was very well written. I hope this one will be even better. Her hand tightened around her handbag, and her eyes were no longer as clear as in the photos on her social media. The interview ended in a dull atmosphere. After that, I went out for dinner with the professor and a few students. Lam Uyen was also present. I don't understand why she didn't leave. At the dinner table, under my clever guidance, the professor mentioned several memories between me and Tieu Bach Hanh during our school days. He recounted how we once led the debate club to win the championship and mentioned that Tieu Bach Hanh often went to class with me, and the two of us were almost always seen together. I noticed Lam Uyen's face growing paler, and suddenly I felt that pressuring a young girl like this was no longer interesting. That night when I got home, Tieu Bach Hanh was waiting on the sofa. He held his phone in his hand, and as soon as he saw me walk in, he stood up and came over. "How was school today? Why didn't you tell me you had an interview with the school newspaper? Looks like that little girl has already spilled the beans." I pretended not to know and glanced at him. The sharing received quite good feedback from the professor, and the interview was arranged by him. "Oh, how did you know I had an interview?" The smile on his face paused for a moment, then he quickly regained his natural demeanor. "The person who interviewed you also interviewed me. At that time, she added me on WeChat. After interviewing you, she messaged me and even said we looked like a perfect match. This girl has quite a keen eye." I smiled at him as he made up stories, casually asking back, "That little girl didn't add me as a friend?" It seems that in her eyes, the position of the senior Tieu is indeed not like an ordinary person. After I finished speaking, his arm that was holding me slightly stiffened, but in just a moment, he tightened his grip, holding me and gently swaying. "Are you jealous, my wife? I'm very happy to see you jealous, but she probably added me just because I'm a senior in the same department. You have to trust me." As he spoke, he lowered his head and gently rubbed against my neck. The meaning in that gesture was very clear. At that moment, I really wanted to expose everything, to question him about why he betrayed me, but reason still held me back. Right now, I only have a few blurry photos in my hands, with no solid evidence. For the past 11 years, we have lived too sweetly. He treated me too well, so well that even my parents favored him more. My friends also always trusted him, no one around me ever thought he could do something like that. If I make a big deal out of this now, the only one who will suffer is me. The anger inside me is like a wild horse wanting to break everything, but it cannot find a way out. I wanted to tear the smile off his face, but in the end, I just said I was tired and hurriedly escaped to the bathroom. That night, I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. Looking at the man sleeping soundly beside me, a crazy thought suddenly surged in my heart, even wanting to use a knife to kill him. I quietly took his phone and once again opened the chat window with Lam Uyen. It was still an empty chat window. I don't know if it was too cautious or too trusting that I would never check his phone. The girl's latest status was posted in the evening, along with a cheerful selfie. The comments below said she was comforted, so happy. The previous status was posted in the afternoon. After interviewing me, there was only one simple and very sad sentence. "I guess the one comforting her is Tieu Bach Hanh." They comforted each other with voice or text messages. What did they say? My head hurts, the news pains me, to the point that my hands tremble holding the phone. I sat still once again until sunrise, and he was completely unaware. The next day, I received the girl's interview draft via email. I have to admit it was quite good. I replied okay. None of us mentioned adding WeChat yesterday. That girl also kept her composure very well, but the detective gave me a secondary account that had added Lam Uyen. The day before, she posted looking forward to going to the amusement park tomorrow. The next day, I felt like a stalker following them. Tieu Bach Hanh changed out of the suit he wore when leaving home in the morning, swapping it for a casual shirt to match the girl. I stood a few meters away from them, watching them hold hands and go out. The girl knew how to act cute, swinging Tieu Bach Han's hand while sweetly looking at him saying things I couldn't hear. Perhaps he would refuse to ride the roller coaster. I thought Tieu Bach Hanh would definitely refuse. 5 years ago, when he came to the amusement park with me, I forced him to ride the roller coaster once and he threw up, swearing he would never ride again. But I was wrong. He smiled and patted the girl's head and sat down with her. I watched the roller coaster rush away, hearing the screams reminding myself that I had to take revenge on them. After riding the roller coaster, even though Tieu Bach Han's face was pale, his lips devoid of blood, he still gently comforted the girl who was blaming herself. I continued to follow them, watching them wear Mickey and Minnie headbands, watching Tieu Bach Han tenderly wipe the cream off the corner of Lam Uyen's mouth, watching them hold hands and walk forward. Finally, at some moment or when everything accumulated to an unbearable level, I stood still and could no longer follow them. I stood there, ignoring the passing tourists looking at me, walking past or bumping into me, until a little girl about 4 or 5 years old handed me a tissue. "Miss, don't cry anymore." I looked down at the girl, my eyes blurred, then realized my tears had soaked my face. I took the tissue, smiling in thanks. That smile was perhaps worse than crying. The little girl seriously scolded, "You are so beautiful, crying doesn't suit you." Yes, I am this beautiful. Tieu Bach Han really has a conscience that has been eaten by dogs, his eyes have been swallowed by wolves. I don't want to understand why he cheated and betrayed his promise, I just want to withdraw from this life. Life is still long, 11 years is just a part. I am only 30 years old, my life has not yet reached halfway. I turned and left, I no longer needed that person, but the price must be paid, and they must pay it. When I got home, I gradually calmed down. It has been half a month since I discovered his odd behavior, and continuously forcing myself to observe their interactions as a form of therapy helped me become disappointed enough to erase all the sweetness and happiness of the past. I have rearranged all the movable and immovable assets in the house. Since I study finance, I manage all the investments in the house. I plan to take half a year to turn this house into a legal debt. The most awkward part is Tieu Bach Han's company. He started his business while still in graduate school. After 5 years, the company has gone through several rounds of funding and is preparing to go public. Yes, at such a crucial moment, he dared to cheat, which shows that the girl holds a very important place in his heart. I don't know if he has thought carefully about the consequences of choosing Lam Uyen or thinks that I might forgive the existence of Lam Uyen and not divorce or make a big deal out of it. He only came home when it got dark, having changed out of the outfit he wore at the amusement park and put on the suit he wore when leaving in the morning. How could he change so easily? He saw me sitting on the sofa and walked over to hug me. Strangely, he had no other scent on him, but I still felt disgusted. He held me in his arms, tiredly recounting the difficulties of gaining weight. While he couldn't see, my eyes were filled with hatred. How could he calmly treat me like a fool to deceive me like that? To keep him from being suspicious, I still told him about what happened during the day as usual. I intentionally mentioned the investment that a senior introduced. He just smiled and said, "Everything is up to me, you completely trust me." So I quietly began to shift the cash flow and the mortgage of the property under the guise of investment. He didn't notice anything at all. The day I saw the photo of them kissing on the street, I secretly bribed a few people around Lam Uyen. I instructed them to lead her to spend extravagantly, attend high-end parties and events so she would gradually get used to the upper class, nurturing her ambitions and vanity step by step. I watched her become more and more pragmatic, seeing Tieu Bach Han continuously spending money on her. I wanted to elevate her and then wait for the day she would fall. The day I saw them entering and leaving the hotel, I quietly transferred the family assets from a clean state to a debt burden. When Tieu Bach Han gradually ran out of pocket money, I arranged for Lam Uyen to seduce him into buying real estate for her. His money was drained little by little, eventually forcing him to touch the company's funds. Then when I saw them together entering the new house, I prepared a plan to push Tieu Bach Han out of the company in the final funding round. Thinking about the spiritual child he had worked hard to build for 5 years being taken away by someone else must be very painful. I did all of this quietly by myself, without telling anyone. We still played the role of a loving couple, still kept our promise to trust each other, share everything, and occasionally say loving words. Our acting was so perfect that no one suspected anything. Until now, everything has almost reached a breaking point. The bitterness of the past 6 months is something only I understand clearly. Tieu Bach Han, who this morning wore a white shirt and jeans, walked out of the house, perhaps having received the divorce papers and the asset freeze notice that morning. And Lam Uyen must have also received the lawsuit to reclaim our joint property. It's a pity that under my careful guidance, along with a few properties, her total assets are only about 1 billion. After Tieu Bach Hanh left the house, I went upstairs to gather all his belongings. After enduring for half a year, I finally managed to kick him out of this house. When Tieu Bach Hanh returned, all his belongings were piled up outside the door. The lock had been changed, and the fingerprints were completely erased. He impatiently pressed the doorbell. I saw him through the camera, clenching his fists and then releasing them. The calmness of the morning had vanished, leaving only annoyance and restlessness. I silently watched him pacing back and forth in front of the door, my mood growing increasingly uneasy. Seeing that I didn't open the door, he took out his phone to call. My phone rang, the ringtone went on for a long time before I finally answered. "And, open the door, can we talk?" His voice revealed clear signs of fatigue and pleading. "I don't want to talk, just let the lawyer handle everything." The other end immediately fell silent. Through the camera, I saw him sitting down next to the door, looking utterly disappointed. Seeing the man I had loved for 11 years like this, my heart still ached. I had been by his side from our youthful years to adulthood, from innocence to maturity. He doesn't want a divorce. His voice dropped heavily. "Let's meet at the court." Tieu Bach Hanh. I hung up the phone. Through the camera, I saw him silently staring at the phone I had just hung up, sitting there for a long time, just a door apart, while I lay in bed in the bedroom, but it was another sleepless night. He sat outside the door, remaining there all night. I don't know what he thought that night, whether it was regret, self-blame, or blaming me. The next morning, I opened the door, he saw me, slowly stood up, his face worn and filled with pain. "Tieu Bach Hanh, there's nothing left for us to say. You and Lam Uyen have already received the notice. As for her, I will sue to reclaim our shared assets, and as for you, I will divorce you. Let the lawyer handle everything." He stepped forward and took my hand. "And then, let's talk." We stood facing each other for a long time, the distance so close yet feeling like a lifetime apart. "And then, we have loved each other for 11 years. Please give me a chance to talk." He knows I always have a soft heart. 11 years. So what about 11 years? Haven't you already betrayed me? What more can you say? You know very well that in my eyes, there is no room for a single grain of dust. But there was still a sense of unwillingness in my words. "And then?" I felt like I was signaling for him to come inside. He sat on the sofa, his head bowed, not daring to look at me. "And then, if you say you have always loved me and never thought about divorce, do you believe it?" I scoffed, saying nothing, letting him continue on his own. "You know that in my eyes, there is no room for a grain of sand. This time I will not forgive you, right?" He received the notification yesterday, and the first thing he thought was how much you must have suffered upon learning the truth. "How long have you known about this? How long have you endured?" "And then, I love you, even now, I still love you. Do you still believe it?" His eyes full of hope as he gazed at me. I find that quite ironic. He asked if I believed it. I dare not believe it. Don't tarnish the word love anymore. Even he felt a soft, mocking smile. We have loved each other for 11 years. He always believed that we would be together forever in peace like happiness. The appearance of Lam Uyen was like a strange fish jumping into a tranquil fish tank. She brought him waves that his heart had never experienced before. She looked at him with admiring eyes, calling him her idol. She brought him a feeling of being worshipped, excitement that he had never experienced with you. And gradually, he became greedy. He told her that he had a wife and would never divorce, but she still rushed in like a moth to a flame, saying, "As long as you take the time to meet her, it's enough. You know?" Over the years, he has rejected many people. They mocked him because his wife was strict, but he just laughed it off. But when Lam Uyen cried after being rejected, he started to pay attention to her. He realized he could no longer refuse her. He does not deny that he likes her. Is he too greedy? He doesn't want to let go of anyone. Lam Uyen will not affect you. She will be very obedient. And then, can we not get a divorce? Hearing his absurd words, I really didn't know how to react. What does he rely on to think that I could accept this dirty thought of his? What if she is a little obedient girl? I really want to dissect his head to see what's inside. Has he been stuffed with water in his head all these years? Tieu Bach Hanh, I suddenly don't understand you anymore. Maybe I also can't understand men. Don't make excuses for your infidelity. I have always been steadfast here. You want to speak, I let you speak, but not to hear this nonsense. I coldly cut him off. Regarding the money you spent on Lam Uyen, I have already had many people investigate. The house will be reclaimed, and the remaining amount of less than 300 million must be fully refunded. Don't think about you paying for her. Before the divorce, you are not allowed to touch a single penny. Our current assets are a burden of debt, you must share the burden. Your company's shares under my name will belong to me, while the shares under your name, I will take 40%. Debt? Our family has always had a stable cash flow, how can it be a burden? Speaking of assets, he finally became rational. Failed investments, all legal and verifiable. The lawyer will provide details when comparing. He suddenly laughed bitterly. You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you? You are indeed rational, always self-controlled. I see the sarcasm in his eyes. Hearing his self-assessment, the anger in my heart can no longer be contained. Yes, I am self-controlled, Tieu Bach Hanh. For the past 11 years, I have always been devoted to you, never betraying this family. It is you who destroyed everything I have built with all my heart. Do you know? I saw the photo of you and her at the school anniversary. The angled photo of you that she took. Looking at you dressing young to match her. I have seen the photos of the two of you kissing in and out of the hotel, holding hands while walking. I even followed the two of you to the amusement park. Watching you take care of her, I stood a few meters away and cried like a child. Do you understand? You are a beast. I never thought we would come to this. I am petty. Tieu Bach Hanh. I tell you, I will not let you and her live in peace. Get lost. I felt like a madman pulling Tieu Bach Hanh and pushing him out the door before he could react, then helplessly leaning against the door and crying, releasing all my anger. I heard his voice softly say sorry from the other side of the door. But what good is it now? The lawyer has executed our plan, suing Lam Uyen first. After I submitted the documents about Lam Uyen's misconduct to University A, I waited for her punishment. After all, neither Tieu Bach Hanh nor I are anonymous figures. Rumors about the breakdown of our marriage have spread throughout the finance and technology circles. His company's funding round being stalled along with Lam Uyen's scandal makes it impossible for her to continue existing in this industry. When I received the call from my parents, it was the first time I felt anxious since planning the divorce because my parents loved him so much. They remember the dishes that Tieu Bach Hanh likes, his little habits. Every time we go back to the hometown, the dining table is always full of the dishes he likes. They are always proud in front of everyone. My son-in-law is filial, loving, caring, and takes care of the family. I am afraid to face my parents' disappointment. Mom, I answered the phone but didn't know what to say. Anh, have you had dinner yet? Yes, I have eaten. What about you and Dad? We have eaten too. No matter what happens, you must take good care of yourself. Do you need us to come visit you? Mom's voice no longer had the usual cheerfulness. She didn't ask why I was getting a divorce, didn't give advice, just said a simple sentence that made me tear up. I'm sorry, Mom, for disappointing you. I couldn't keep the marriage. My parents love him so much, this time it has embarrassed them in front of the neighbors and relatives. Daughter, you are not wrong, he is not good. If someone is not good, we can replace them, it's not a big deal. Your parents like him because he treats you well. If I don't need him anymore, then he is nothing. What is reputation anyway? Nothing is more important than my mother's daughter. And then, your parents are here, don't be afraid, just do what you want. My parents' firm words made me feel at ease for the first time in 6 months. From childhood to now, I have always been the child that made them proud, never once disappointing them. What I fear most in this divorce is their disappointment. Not wanting to leave me alone and lonely, my parents specially came to visit, which made me feel both amused and touched. Later, I heard that Tieu Bach Hanh and his parents had contacted my parents many times to persuade me not to make a big deal out of it, but my parents refused. They firmly supported and cared for me. The litigation process went smoothly. Lam Uyen was punished and had to return the money she had taken. University A, after receiving the documents and investigating, decided to expel Lam Uyen, cutting off the future of a talented and promising student. On the second day, after receiving the verdict, Lam Uyen came to meet me. She had never directly faced me before, nor had she ever revealed her relationship with Tieu Bach Hanh through any channel. That made me a bit curious. I wanted to know what made her able to keep everything so secret. When we met again, she no longer had the bright demeanor from before. Her gaze at me was full of anger and unwillingness. I looked at her, feeling only pity in my heart. Are you satisfied now? I have been expelled. I worked so hard to get into University A. And yet you destroyed everything. You are the one who is destroying yourself. I calmly replied. I told her, I love him and he loves me too. So what if you expel me from school? Tieu Bach Hanh said he would take care of me, he said he would support me. So what if you and he have been together for 11 years? He said that when he is with me, he is very happy. She looked at me, her voice growing increasingly harsh. Do you know? At first, I was ready to quietly be by his side, without needing him to divorce you, but you were the one who actively asked for a divorce. I really have to thank you. I silently looked at the girl who was furious in front of me. I used to think she was very smart, but looking back now, she is just a fool. I don't know if it was love or anger that made her lose all reason and come to me to suffer. So did you intend to be a concubine before? My words immediately left her speechless, her face flushed. Clearly, she had nothing left to argue. We are not divorced yet, I can still help him find a wife. You wait. I stood up and left, not wanting to hear any more of her nonsense. As soon as I turned my back, I arranged for people to hang banners in her hometown. The next day, eye-catching banners appeared under her apartment and in front of the school where her parents worked. It clearly stated that the Lam family, with parents who are teachers, has a daughter who is both talented and beautiful, specializing in seducing married men, hoping to become a concubine. Now on behalf of her husband looking for a wife, it is said that Mr. Lam was humiliated at school, and when he returned home, he felt even more ashamed and angry to the point of being hospitalized. Lam Uyen hurried back to her hometown, facing the disappointed and reproachful looks of her parents along with the gossip of neighbors and relatives. Online, the story quickly spread, with a barrage of criticism and insults coming in. My lawyer finally managed to reclaim the house along with $3 million in cash. Since I requested to freeze Tieu Bach Hanh's assets, he was completely unable to help her. In the end, Lam Uyen had to sell all her luxury items and borrow from everywhere to gather $2 million. Tieu Bach Hanh also had to borrow an additional $1 million from various sources to cover the remaining amount. Of course, I kept all the evidence of that loan to later count it as his debt in the divorce. Lam Uyen's side had become a mess, and Tieu Bach Hanh's side was no better. Because of our divorce, his company's fundraising was continuously delayed. He didn't want to divorce because he would bear the family's debts, but he also couldn't prove that I intentionally transferred the assets. Therefore, the divorce process kept dragging on. The two of them no longer found joy in being together. Lam Uyen blamed him for not caring about her anymore, and the promise to help her with her studies did not come true. Even when her father had to be hospitalized, Tieu Bach Hanh did not show up. She had to face the ruined future alone, carrying the stigma, being blamed by her family, and constantly criticized by the online community. Tieu Bach Hanh no longer felt any romantic feelings for her. In his eyes, she was just a burden. Finally, under the pressure of the company's urgent need for funding, Tieu Bach Hanh had to admit his family's debts and agree to the divorce terms I proposed. But he made one request: my company shares could only be sold back to him, which meant that in the divorce, he would have to bear a debt of tens of millions. In his mind, at least this way he could still keep the company. But I used my investment resources to influence his company's final funding round, along with other shareholders planning to push him out of the company. After the funding round ended, he was removed from the company. On the day he left the company, I made a special trip to watch. I saw him quietly leaving the office, carrying a cardboard box, leaving the workspace, leaving the empire he had devoted himself to building. I didn't feel as comfortable as I had imagined. On the day the company went public, we rang the bell on the Nasdaq. No one remembered Tieu Bach Hanh, the founder of the company. Perhaps someone remembered, but no one would mention it again. He might be sitting in a corner, silently watching his brainchild drift further away from him. After everything was over, I allowed myself to rest and visit Africa, a trip we had once planned but never realized. I met poor African children who were still full of hope and felt overwhelmed by the migration of wildlife. Standing on the vast and pristine savanna, I completely let go of my 11-year past. Regardless of good or bad, it all used to be the past. The next time I heard about Tieu Bach Hanh was 2 years later at a technology forum. I heard he started a new business again, but this time it failed. The product was not competitive, the investment money was lost, and he was drowning in debt. The next encounter with Tieu Bach Hanh was at an investment conference. He came to seek investment, while I attended as an investor. He drank glass after glass with investors, still wearing the suit I had bought for him before, but now it no longer fit. His gaunt body could not support the suit, looking truly pathetic. Sitting at another table, I was surrounded by people looking for investment. From afar, we locked eyes like two strangers. I saw him holding his stomach. Perhaps his stomach ailment had relapsed. In the early days of his startup, he had drunk himself into a stomach problem. Later, when the company grew, he no longer had to drink as much. Thanks to my careful care, his stomach issues improved. Now, I feel sorry for the stomach that I had painstakingly taken care of. After the party ended, I sat in a taxi and saw Lam Uyen, looking thin and simply dressed, helping Tieu Bach Hanh into the cab. At least they got what they wanted. When I returned from vacation, someone reported to me about their situation. I heard that Lam Uyen's parents retired early and moved because of embarrassment. Lam Uyen could not continue her studies but stayed by Tieu Bach Hanh's side to start a business with him. Later, friends in the industry even asked me if I wanted to continue making things difficult for them, and I declined. With the bad reputation of embezzling company funds to support a mistress, coupled with the rapid development of the tech industry, Tieu Bach Hanh would never have a chance to return. He and Lam Uyen would have to walk the path of poverty forever. Tieu Bach Hanh's side story. Tieu Bach Hanh blinked and saw Lieutenant, who was surrounded by a group of wealthy individuals discussing investment projects worth hundreds of millions. She wore high-end attire, and every gesture exuded elegance. She had now completely become a part of the class he could never reach. The two of them have finally become people from two different worlds. 2 years have passed since the last time he saw her. That was the day their company went public. At that time, he just quietly stood from afar watching everyone. Now, meeting again, he bent down to look at his suit that no longer fit. It was still the same suit from 3 years ago. He let out a bitter smile, withdrew his gaze, and without having time for any more thoughts, turned to find someone who could invest in his new company. 2 years ago, the night before Kai NAC went public, he was pushed out of the company. He restarted his career and established a new company named Thanh. But this company is currently lacking resources and does not have any innovative products strong enough to compete in the market. Without investment capital, in less than a month, Thanh will have to close down. The investors he had once ignored 3 years ago have now become his last hope. Just for a few $100 million in investment, he had to drink glass after glass at social gatherings. Mr. Tieu, if it were the Kai NAC of the past, don't mention 2 million, just give me the chance to contribute 10 million, I'd be ready to offer it right away. But Tantan now, just forget it. Mr. Lai, if I could build Kai NAC into a strong company, I can definitely make Tantan develop as well. If you invest right now, there will definitely be profits in the future. Mr. Lai, one of the few people still willing to talk to him, shook his head and turned to leave before he could finish his sentence. Mr. Tieu, currently no one in the investment community believes in Tantan anymore. You should find another way. Another investor patted him on the shoulder and offered some well-meaning advice. Tieu Bach Hanh nodded in thanks, but inside he still felt unwilling. The party gradually came to an end, and once again he left empty-handed. From one party to another, he continuously searched for investment opportunities. The stomach disease that Anan had helped him cure before has now relapsed. The dull pain spread throughout his body. He held his stomach and walked into the restroom. As soon as he reached the door, he heard a conversation inside. Now Tieu Bach Hanh is truly in a dire situation. Once kicked out of Kai NAC, there would be no chance to rise again. Currently, Tantana's products are nothing remarkable. His reputation in the technology and investment circles has also been ruined. Who would still dare to invest? It's all self-inflicted. Lieutenant is so capable, yet he dared to cheat. Now, the fact that he can still appear in this circle is because she has shown mercy. How many men in Tondat don't have distorted thoughts? But at least the red flag at home must be kept steady. And he truly does not know his own limits. Oh, it seems Mr. Lam also has some experience. Haha, conversations like this have become too familiar to Tieu Bach Hanh. The people inside came out, saw his pale face, and understood that their previous words had been overheard. If it were 3 years ago, they might have panicked and apologized, but now they just smiled faintly and walked past him. When Tieu Bach Hanh returned to the banquet hall, it was already empty. He tried to suppress his stomach pain and went downstairs. Lam Uyen is waiting in the lobby. Seeing him step out of the elevator, she hurried over. Did you find an investor? No. Why hasn't anyone invested yet? The company is about to go under, and we're out of money at home. Why did you let Lieutenant set a trap and get kicked out of the company? The company was clearly about to go public. How did it end up like this? Lam Uyen seems not to notice his displeased expression, continuing to ramble on with her complaints. In the past 2 years, the fall from the top to the bottom has gradually faded his idol image in her eyes. Lam Uyen, I have a stomachache, Tieu Bach Hanh said softly. He recalled that when Kai NAC was first established, he often had to drink at parties. But Anan always accompanied him or prepared medicine and food to protect his stomach. After the company stabilized, she even found him a very good traditional medicine doctor to take care of his health. His stomach issue is just an old problem, taking painkillers is enough. At this moment, Lam Uyen only coldly said such a sentence. The admiration she once had in her eyes now only remains indifference. The two got into a taxi. Tieu Bach Hanh's car had long been sold to cover expenses. As soon as he sat in the car, he accidentally looked out the window. In front, Lieutenant was sitting comfortably in a Sinan. Whether it was regret upon seeing that scene or the musty smell mixed with sweat in the cramped taxi, or perhaps the rising stomach pain. A wave of nausea suddenly hit. Seeing him look like he was about to vomit, the taxi driver immediately spoke up, "Don't throw up in the car, you'll have to pay extra." Lam Uyen quickly took out a plastic bag from her handbag and handed it to Tieu Bach Hanh. He looked at the plastic bag and then at Lam Uyen with an annoyed expression. He tried to hold back the nausea, turned his head to look out the window, gripping the bag tightly, revealing his blue veins. The driver continued to mumble, "I thought everyone coming from here was a big boss, a wealthy person." It started to rain outside, and the sound of raindrops hitting the car window was very clear. Lam Uyen beside him kept complaining, "It's been 2 years, the company is drowning in debt. At first, I thought you could recreate a Kai NAC, but in the end, nothing came of it, and you're still in so much debt." If only we had invested in something else or bought a house back then. Now there's nothing left. I really sacrificed my chance to go to university for you, endured so much hardship, and in the end, there's nothing left. I haven't bought a new outfit in 2 years, even food has to be calculated down to the last bit. I'm only in my 20s. The complaints and soft sobs made the already cramped space even more suffocating. Isn't this the path you chose for yourself? You were the one who actively came to find me before, have you forgotten? These complaints are not the first time. In the past, every time it happened, Tieu Bach Hanh silently endured. But this time, he didn't want to endure it alone anymore. His voice became low, filled with anger and mockery as he looked at Lam Uyen, making her shiver. After a while, Tieu Bach Hanh turned back to look out the window. How did life come to this? Tieu Bach Hanh clenched his right hand, punching the seat beside him, but couldn't relieve the frustration inside. He and Thanh had been together for 11 years. From the first glance at university, the girl who looked awkwardly at him captured his heart completely. Her confidence and charm caught his eye, but deep down he had a bit of insecurity that he didn't even realize. Even though he liked her a lot, he still waited for her to take the initiative to ensure that she would be fully committed to him before confessing. Thanh was outstanding, her family was good, she taught him many things, helped him access a higher world, and organized their lives neatly so he could confidently move forward. In the end, Nac succeeded, but he became arrogant. Lam Uyen appeared when he was at his peak. The admiration and dependence in her eyes were something that Thanh had never given him, satisfying his male ego. He had never thought about divorce but couldn't resist Lam Uyen's innocent, admiring gaze. He thought that with Thanh at home, he could seek relaxation with Lam Uyen when needed, but he forgot that Thanh was not someone easy to control. The truth proved that it was not Thanh who could not live without Tieu Bach Hanh, but Tieu Bach Hanh was nothing without Thanh. When being kicked out of Nac, Thanh had not completely pushed him to the edge. The money from selling shares was enough for him to live a normal life if calculated carefully. But the dissatisfaction in his heart, combined with indirect words from Lam Uyen, pushed him to restart his career. But this time there were no new ideas, no relationships and resources, along with the scandal of infidelity and embezzlement, plus the rapid development of the tech industry, he could no longer stand up. Both were tired as they entered the house, opening the door to see the messy home. Lam Uyen was not good at managing the household. In the past, Tieu Bach Hanh thought she was young, so he spent time cleaning up, but today he had no strength left. He stepped over the garbage from takeout on the coffee table, ignored the pile of washed or unwashed clothes on the sofa, and trudged toward the bedroom, lying down on the bed staring at the ceiling. Lam Uyen approached cautiously. Today Tieu Bach Hanh made her feel scared. Does he still have a stomachache and need painkillers? Have you picked up the results from the last test yet? The stomach pain has become unignorable. He was so busy that he forgot to pick up the results from the last test. Oh, I forgot, I'll go get them tomorrow. Recently, I've been too busy, having to take care of the company and the household matters. Tieu Bach Hanh gently closed his eyes, not wanting to hear Lam Uyen say more, just briefly said, I will go get it myself. In the end, Tieu Bach Hanh looked at the result sheet in his hand, feeling unsurprised, only a sense that everything had been predetermined. The doctor was still saying something, but his mind had drifted far away. Is this my retribution? He sat on the bench in the hospital lobby, silently watching the flow of people passing by. On one hand, he thought about the company's financial situation, on the other hand, he wondered where to find money for treatment. At this moment, his desire to live suddenly became stronger than ever. Suddenly he remembered something and felt lucky that Thanh had taken good care of him before. He still remembered when she suggested buying insurance costing tens of millions each year, he had opposed it. Yet now that very thing had become his lifeline. Currently, he no longer had the strength to continue managing the company. Thanh needed to be sold before it completely collapsed. Although the money from selling the company was not enough to pay off all debts, at least it could prevent further losses. Tieu Bach Hanh carefully recalculated everything. This time his plan was much more practical. Lam Uyen only learned about it after the company had been sold. For the past 2 years, she had always held on to the hope of returning to her former luxurious life. That dream had helped her endure all hardships. But when that dream shattered, she almost went insane. Tieu Bach Hanh, you bastard. Didn't you promise to give me a good life? You secretly sold the company behind my back. What do you really want? How much suffering have I endured because of you? Are you even a man anymore? You destroyed me. Tieu Bach Hanh looked at the woman in front of him, who was crying uncontrollably, and he only felt a deep regret. My illness has reached the final stage. A simple sentence made all of Lam Uyen's cries stop immediately. I have everything arranged. The company can no longer sustain itself, it must be sold to minimize losses. After selling the company, we still have a debt. But if we sell the house and add the insurance money, we can pay off most of it. My illness is also covered by insurance, then we can reassess and find a normal job to get by. Selling the house, I don't agree. You go find the insurance contract I gave you before. I need to recalculate. Tieu Bach Hanh glanced at Lam Uyen and continued, this house was bought before we got married, whether to sell it or not is my decision, but the debt was incurred after marriage, so you also have to bear half of it. If you don't comply, you can only leave with half of that debt. Lam Uyen sat there, clearly struck by this shock. Tieu Bach Hanh quietly waited for her to accept the reality. Insurance? What insurance? After a long while, Lam Uyen finally came to her senses and asked hesitantly, is it the insurance contract that I told you to pay for every year? That type of insurance was thoroughly researched by Lieutenant before being chosen, claiming it was very suitable for business people like us. Every year, we had to pay tens of millions, but now it is the lifeline. Looking into Lam Uyen's empty and confused eyes, Tieu Bach Hanh suddenly felt a wave of unease. Don't tell me you haven't paid. Lam Uyen lowered her head, her voice trembling, mixed with sobs. I don't understand those things. I just thought tens of millions a year was too expensive. I really didn't know. At this point, Tieu Bach Hanh no longer had the strength to be angry, nor the mind to ask where that money had gone. He just wished it was all a dream. When he woke up, he was still 3 years ago. He would stay away from Lam Uyen and would definitely preserve his marriage with Lieutenant. It's just a pity that there is no medicine for regret in this world, every choice must bear its own consequences. Without money to use for those red soil treatment drugs, Tieu Bach Hanh couldn't hold out for long and passed away after a year. Before he died, Lam Uyen reluctantly took care of him. She helped him clean up when he vomited many nights without sleep. At her age, Lam Uyen no longer had the radiance she once had. Not because of deep feelings, but simply because she was afraid that if she didn't take care of Tieu Bach Hanh, she would have to bear half of his debt. Fortunately, Tieu Bach Hanh left her a little calculation. He sold the house and his secret investment, almost paying off all debts, leaving Lam Uyen with only a small amount of money. In the late nights with no one around, Lam Uyen sat on the small bed of the rented room. Sometimes thinking about the bright future she once imagined, sometimes remembering the luxurious life she once dreamed of. Sometimes she even imagined herself becoming a wealthy lady, happily living beside Tieu Bach Hanh, but reality was cold and cruel. Sometimes thinking about the bright future she once imagined, sometimes remembering the luxurious life she once dreamed of. Sometimes she even imagined herself becoming a wealthy lady, happily living beside Tieu Bach Hanh, but reality was cold and cruel. Sometimes thinking about the bright future she once imagined, sometimes remembering the luxurious life she once dreamed of. Sometimes she even imagined herself becoming a wealthy lady, happily living beside Tieu Bach Hanh, but reality was cold and cruel. She has no home to return to, and no one to rely on. The work is temporary and inconsistent, and the people she used to work with are gradually distancing themselves from her. At an age that should be the most radiant, she has become strange and lonely. At times filled with resentment, and at other times so empty that she doesn't know what she is living for. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. I truly appreciate your comments, suggestions, and feelings. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel.